It's 4:30 p.m. on March 25th, 2005, Good Friday, in the King of Prussia, part of the Upper Merion Township in Montgomery County, Pennsylvania. George Greaves returns home to the house he shares with his daughters Lisa and Heather, as well as Heather's 2 young daughters. George calls out to his family, but gets no response. And it soon becomes clear why, as he uncovers a scene of unimaginable horror. Entering the kitchen, George finds the lifeless bodies of daughter Heather with Lisa and granddaughter 3-year-old Avery a moment later. It's a brutal triple homicide that will rock this family and the Pennsylvania community to its very core. King of Prussia, Pennsylvania. A tiny community of about 20,000 people. This sleepy town's claim to fame is boasting the 5th largest mall in the USA.
It's pretty huge, 2.9 million square feet. It even has an indoor skydiving center. Visitors travel from all over the Midwest to shop there.
This small town with the big mall is also where George Greaves grew up. And after marrying his sweetheart, Linda Gray, it's where the couple decides to settle down and raise their family. On March 29, 1977, the couple welcomes their first daughter, Heather Elizabeth. 4 years later, on June 9, 1981, Heather's baby sister, Lisa Marie, is born. The 2 girls are thick as thieves as kids, and as teenagers, both attend Upper Merion High School. Heather is well regarded by classmates and teachers as having a great attitude.
She's also a likable teenager outside of the confines of the school, as her family and friends constantly speak highly of her.
Heather sometimes spends time with a group of fellow students who enjoy the tabletop role-playing game Dungeons & Dragons.
She enjoys using her imagination and has several friends in the group. Years pass, and Heather graduates high school, maturing into a healthy, happy adult with children of her own. She is an attentive mother of 2 daughters, Melody, 6, and Avery, 3.
Although her life revolves around her children, she also makes sure to have personal interests to keep her active.
She is an active social member of the King of Prussia Firefighters Coalition, and she's in a serious relationship. She loves her life.
Heather remains close with her 23-year-old sister Lisa, who is studying to be a surgical technician. She intends to enroll in nursing school come the fall.
George is a doting father, and he loves that both his daughters have chosen to stay in King of Prussia. He assists Heather with the responsibilities of raising her 3-year-old toddler, Avery.
Heather's older daughter, Melody, bounces between the Greaves household and that of her father, who shares joint custody of the child. Melody is away from the Greaves house for days at a time.
Thankfully, including today, March 25th, 2005.
On March 25th, the nightmare begins with a simple knock at the door.
Whoever visits Heather that day, she chooses to let them into the house. There's no sign of forced entry.
Heather and her visitor are in the kitchen. and she is mercilessly stabbed in the stomach many times.
The countless unexpected stab wounds are in excess for what it would take to deliver a fatal outcome.
At some point, the killer realizes there are other people in the house.
The killer finds Lisa in the bathroom and stabs her as well, more than 35 times in the stomach.
Her throat is also slashed, just like Heather. What was moments ago a happy family home has been forever transformed into a horrifying scene.
The two murders are shocking and brutal, the stuff of nightmares. But there is more. The killer realizes that there's one more person, a child, somewhere in the house.
At that age, a toddler is barely able to form memories, and as a result, would not be a reliable eyewitness.
But Heather and Lisa's killer is not going to take that chance. And Avery is also stabbed and killed. A monstrous and unthinkable final act of brutality in this house of horrors.
It isn't until hours later that George Greaves returns home from work and discovers this gruesome scene.
It's the most shocking scenario the small town of King of Prussia has ever seen.
These are young, vibrant women in the prime of their lives.
There's something incomprehensible about a killer who will heartlessly murder a helpless child. It chills to the bone.
The news of the crime spreads through the legal system in the area and piques interest due to the horrific details.
And it becomes the personal mission of District Attorney Bruce L. Castor Jr. to try and figure out what kind of person could do something like this and attempt to get some kind of justice for these 3 innocent victims.
When you're the DA, like I was, I simply kept the case myself. We only had a few lawyers that would go run investigations, and then we would divide the cases up once we arrested somebody. But in this case, the detective lieutenant decided it was so severe that they would come up to me as opposed to going down to the third in command. So I received the call on it, and when I learned the severity of the case, I drove to the scene.
With so little to go on, no weapon, no suspects, and no reason for someone to butcher an entire family, investigators are starting from zero.
But Bruce Castor and the detectives will soon discover this case is even more horrifying than they ever could have imagined.
It is a summary of what you might use if you were to describe the word evil. A hardness of heart, cruelty, a mind totally devoid of social constructs and willingness to operate within the law.
And what they find out will not only be disturbing to them, but will dredge up shocking similarities from past investigations. George Greaves returns home to find his 27-year-old daughter Heather stabbed to death, viciously murdered in the family's kitchen.
But George's nightmare is far from over. He also discovers the slain bodies of his other daughter Lisa and Heather's 3-year-old daughter Avery.
The crime scene is a bloodbath. 3 victims, all brutally stabbed. 3 young lives unceremoniously snuffed out.
Detective Albert Donnell is assigned to the case. He's joined at the scene by Upper Merion District Attorney Bruce Castor Jr.
Castor is called in because of the Good Friday holiday, an unusual shift from standard protocol.
3 people dead, that's a big case, even in a large county, having 3 people killed that way. So I took the case over myself. I ran into one, Detective Donnell, and he was standing over one of the Greaves girls by the door. And the back door, which opened into the kitchen, was blocked partly by one of the girls' bodies.
Bruce Castor begins to examine the details around what appears to be the first murder victim, Heather Greaves.
You come in the door, the body was there, nothing had been touched or moved. I saw the one girl with her throat cut and her abdomen stabbed and slashed many times.
Bruce knows immediately by the viciousness of what he sees that he's not dealing with your average killer. There's a lot of rage behind these wounds.
Everyone investigating the case knows they're dealing with something new and horrific to the area, as this is the first serial killer they've dealt with.
After an initial examination of Heather's body in the kitchen, Bruce moves to explore the rest of the house. He knows there are other victims in here somewhere, including a toddler, but he's not yet sure where. Bruce makes his way through the hallway toward the bathroom. As he does, he discovers the body of 3-year-old Avery Johnson.
The child was very small, and she was dressed in like pajamas that had roughly the same color in the low light as the carpet, so it was just almost camouflaged.
Bruce takes note of Avery's wounds and continues on to learn whatever he can about the third victim, Lisa Greaves.
By the bathroom, had multiple stabs and slashes, and her brassiere was showing. It had the impression of a slasher sex crime.
There's a mountain of physical evidence for investigators to comb through, and an entire family has been bludgeoned to death for reasons police can only begin to speculate here. This is not going to be an open and shut case.
Castor is already steeling himself for the challenging and emotional investigation ahead. George Greaves returns home on March 25, 2005, to discover his 2 daughters and his young granddaughter have been slaughtered.
Homicide investigation looks really glamorous when you watch it in the movies and see it on TV, and it looks real sophisticated and all. It actually is not. You have somebody who is dead, you have an expert who's telling you the death is by criminal means.
Police need to start somewhere, so they begin where many of these investigations do, in the victim's inner circle.
The first thing you do is you look for people who might want that person to be dead.
One of the initial suspects in many murder investigations is a spouse or significant other.
You'd be surprised how often it's the husband or boyfriend.
Investigators will also need to canvass people in the neighborhood, as well as friends and acquaintances of Heather and Lisa.
The more people they need to question, the more rumors can spread. So the team needs to be careful with what they say and do at this crucial point in the case.
It's a long process that hopefully ends in a conviction and courtroom justice. And for Castor, this is just the beginning of the journey.
But before any of that groundwork can begin, accompanying detective Albert Donnell discovers a curious detail while inspecting Heather Greaves' body.
I said, "That looks familiar." He goes, "Well, yeah, it should, because that's the same mark that happened on Jennifer Still's body."
Jennifer Still, a familiar name, burned into Bruce Castor's memory forever thanks to another brutal murder just 6 years ago. Jennifer's murder had remained unsolved, maybe until now.
District Attorney Bruce Castor and Detective Albert Donnell noticed details of Heather's neck wounds that remind them of a previous unsolved mystery in Upper Marion County.
I knew that look on his face was one of consternation, like there's something not right here. You know, I saw exactly what he was looking at, and I saw those little tears.
The slash wound on Heather's throat has been created with a serrated blade.
It's a small detail, but a very important one.
And when you use a serrated knife, it leaves a different sort of edge as opposed to a knife that has a flat edge.
Who is Jennifer Still? Jennifer Still is born in 1979 in Bridgeport, Pennsylvania, about a mile from Upper Marion. Jennifer has a tough childhood. A cleft lip and palate, as well as problems with scoliosis, make her the subject of bullying from classmates.
From the tender age of 3 months old and continuing until after she graduated high school, Jennifer suffers through numerous corrective surgeries to address these conditions. Gradually, her quality of life improves, and she matures into a strong young woman.
As the scars of a traumatic childhood fade, Jennifer begins to find her place in the world, moving in with her boyfriend Kevin and beginning to build a life together.
Jennifer is smitten with the relationship her and Kevin share, and with all the struggles throughout her formative years, the happiness she finds is well-deserved.
On July 6, 1999, Jennifer's boyfriend Kevin returns home to their shared residence from a shift at the local car wash. He calls out, but he gets no response. As he approaches the bedroom, something stops him cold.
Just like George Greaves finds his daughter Heather, Kevin finds his girlfriend Jennifer Still in a pool of her own blood.
Jennifer is long since deceased.
She never stood a chance. There is almost more blood on the floor surrounding her body than inside it.
By sheer coincidence, Detective Albert Donnell, who was present at the Greaves murder in 2005, is also present at this 1999 crime scene, 6 years previous.
He discovers that Jennifer has also been stabbed multiple times in the stomach, and her throat has also been slashed with a serrated knife. Quite often, in stabbing crimes, the assailant injures themselves in the process.
Police described this crime scene as one of the most brutal they'd seen in an entire career. Jennifer Still's last moments must have been terrifying.
Since there is no sign of forced entry, Donnell assumes that Jennifer knew her assailant, just as Heather Greaves did.
And another life is viciously, senselessly lost. Kevin is devastated by the death and discovery of his girlfriend Jennifer. But because he is the closest to the victim, he's brought in for questioning.
Kevin was in love with his girlfriend, so the shock of being interrogated is unexpected for him, but he understands they're simply doing their job.
He was at work all day and interacted with many co-workers who can corroborate his story and act as alibis. He's cleared of any suspicion.
Asked if he has any thoughts on anyone who could have done this, Kevin shares with investigators that he and Jennifer are involved with a Dungeons & Dragons role-playing group.
Just like the group Heather Greaves was a part of. Now that can't be a coincidence.
It's not a coincidence at all. In fact, Jennifer belonged to the exact same high school D&D group that Heather Greaves played with.
It's important to understand this murder was a massive shock to the system for the small community of Bridgeport.
When Jennifer Still was murdered, that happened in Bridgeport, which is a very small community. Almost nothing ever happened there.
Local news outlets run with the shocking story, and it becomes statewide news.
A killing like that got a ton of local attention.
One of the elements that press zoomed in on was the Dungeons & Dragons game. In the 90s, Dungeons & Dragons was still recovering from a moral panic it caused in the 80s amongst concerned parents.
The role-playing game was a massive hit during the era and spawned countless groups of teens eager to dive into a world of fantasy.
It seems silly today, but parents were very concerned about the negative mental impact these role-playing games had on their children. Parents have these withdrawn, troubled kids who lose themselves in this immersive, imaginative game full of dark magic and mystical creatures. And they start to fear that they can't tell the difference between the game and reality.
It's an unusual but promising lead.
The police immediately investigate Jennifer's D&D group, including members named Heather, Danny, Destiny, and John.
We were working on people we thought might have a motive for murdering Jennifer that were in her circle of friends.
Heather is immediately cleared of suspicion.
Likewise, John reports he was out of town at the time of the murder on a trip to New Jersey.
Detectives' attention falls to Destiny, who has some very bizarre things to say.
She says she and Danny consider Jennifer a witch and practitioner of witchcraft.
Although the decade allowed witchcraft to become less scary in the eyes of the public, there was still concern that certain individuals took it too far.
Obviously, we didn't believe any of this stuff was real, but the killer might have thought it was real. Jennifer Still might have thought it was real. And that could provide some basis to start looking at a motive.
Destiny tells investigators that she had also married Jennifer in a Wiccan ceremony.
Both Danny and Destiny believe Jennifer was possessed by demons and needed an exorcism.
Destiny even reports that she recently had frequent dreams of stabbing Jennifer to exorcise the demon inside her.
I wasn't dismissive in the way that you might think, in that witchcraft and stuff is nonsense, because clearly I did think it was nonsense. But I didn't want to ignore the possibility that the participants thought it was real.
They become major suspects in the murder. Eventually, though, they are ruled out when their DNA does not match a spot of blood found at the crime scene.
DNA was in its infancy as far as a criminal tool. Subsequently got much better, but back then it was not that great. When Jennifer Still was murdered, we were aware of it and we knew to try to collect for it, but we still used primarily fingerprints, hairs and fibers, tool marks, things like that.
In 1999, DNA testing was a valid tool, but it's costly and time-consuming to test samples, so you can't just go around and test everyone Jennifer knew, for example.
Despite a handful of promising leads, they all led nowhere, and investigators hit a dead end in the murder of Jennifer Still. For years, it remains a thorn in the side of Bruce Castor.
We had failed to solve the murder of Jennifer Still when I was first assistant. To give you some idea of how unusual that is for us, the national average for solving homicides was about 60%. We solved over 95%, and we almost never lost.
These unsolved cases stick in the minds of law enforcement, gnawing away in their subconscious.
Having that case unsolved, and any of the few that were unsolved during my 20 or so years running Homicide, they all stuck in my head. I knew them all immediately off the top of my head because that was a failure.
So on the day of the Greaves murder, the extremely similar case of Jennifer Still comes very easily to their memory.
The style of the killings, the D&D group connection, the close proximity of both crime scenes. There's so much coincidence here. Castor and Donnell begin to wonder if there's any possibility the murders in 1999 and 2005 have been committed by the same person.
Someone who is friends with both women, who shared interests with both women, someone whose name came up in the histories of both women. And it's that point that detectives turn back to someone they had previously eliminated from their inquiries, fellow high school student John Iikinger. On July 6, 1999, Jennifer Still is found dead in her bedroom, repeatedly stabbed with her throat slashed. 9 years later, on March 25, 2005, only a few miles away, young Heather Greaves is also found dead, with extremely similar wounds to Jennifer Still. Police believe both murders are the work of John Iikinger, a friend to both women who played in a role-playing game group with them.
But who is John Iikinger?
John is born on February 18, 1972, in Malvern, Pennsylvania. He is one of 4 boys in the family. like Heather Greaves and Jennifer Still, he attends Upper Merion High School.
At the time of the Greaves murder, Iikinger is 33 years old, living in Somers Point, New Jersey. He's moved back in with his parents to save money.
During the Jennifer Still investigation, John Iikinger cleverly directed attention away from himself by providing an alibi that he was out of town. This tricked investigators into skipping a DNA test, which was costly and time-consuming.
But District Attorney Bruce Castor and Detective Albert Donnell can't deny there are similarities between the scene of Heather Greaves' murder and Jennifer Still's murder. The investigation continues.
The police canvassed the neighborhood for witnesses.
We did have the information from the neighbor who saw Iikinger leaving the house with what the neighbor thought was red paint on his hands. And we had Eikinger's identity.
Castor immediately jumps on the lead.
I dispatched Detective Lieutenant Nielsen and Detective Godby from Upper Merion to Eikinger's workplace. I think it was in New Jersey somewhere.
The two detectives catch John in the middle of a shift at a supermarket chain called Acme. He was transferred to the store in Somers Point, New Jersey after moving in with his parents.
He's considered somewhat quiet, but an overall good employee who doesn't hesitate to help people while they shop at the chain.
Investigators arrive on site, confident that Iikinger is involved in the Greaves murders just that morning.
At that point, I did not remember that he was on the edge of the circle of people we had talked to in Jennifer Still.
Back in the station, detectives press Iikinger about the wound on his hand. Iikinger claims he was bitten and scratched by his dog.
He thought he could talk his way out of anything. He was very articulate.
Meanwhile, Bruce Castor and Albert Donnell are at the station, crystallizing their memories of the connections between the Greaves murder and the stabbing of Jennifer Still.
We knew that Iikinger was being interviewed by our people, and eventually, after he lies, detectives are really good at getting people to confess. I mean, our guys were really good.
Castor immediately calls the police officers at the supermarket.
In that call, I told Nielsen about this information about Iikinger, the knife, and connection to Still. He goes back in and asks Iikinger about that, comes back on the phone and says, yeah, he did that too.
The shocking, disturbing, and unexpected confession in the middle of a busy supermarket, no less.
And just like that, they've caught a serial murderer, one that has roamed free and terrorized a small Pennsylvania community for 6 years.
John Eikinger's room is searched. A knife with a 6-inch serrated blade is found, along with a blood-stained sweatshirt.
Some of that blood was consistent with blood from the Greaves crime scene, and some was consistent with blood from the Jennifer Still crime scene. In that container with the knife, he had a sweatshirt and he had the scream mask, and he told us that all the Halloweens between the Still murder and that day when we arrested him, he had answered the door on Halloween wearing that sweatshirt and having that knife as a prop and wearing the scream mask to hand out candy.
With startling speed, the police have connected John Iikinger to the murder of Heather Greaves and place him under arrest.
Not only that, but thanks to the sharp memories of Bruce Castor and Albert Donnell, they're able to confront Iikinger about the 1999 murder of Jennifer Still.
Law enforcement have captured one of the most heinous murderers in Pennsylvania's history, charged with 4 counts of murder in the first degree.
While the news a serial killer had been discovered in this sleepy community was shocking enough, the revelation of why John Iikinger committed such evil acts was something nobody saw coming.
In the middle of a busy suburban supermarket, John Iikinger has confessed to butchering 3 innocent people, including a child, in cold blood.
The big work has been done. but there's still one big black hole in the case. Bruce Castor needs a motive.
And there aren't that many of them. I mean, there's revenge, there's love, there's robbery or some sort of theft, and there's murder for hire. That's about it. There's not that many motives.
So it wasn't robbery because nothing was missing from either crime scene. Iikinger is admitted to committing the crimes himself, so murder for hire is not the motive here. Revenge doesn't seem likely since the victims and the killer were friends. So that leaves love.
And then he told us about his desire to have a romantic relationship with Jennifer. So this was an unusual scenario.
He confesses that when he arrived at Jennifer's house on that fateful day, he professed his love for her.
John Iikinger is an awkward young man dealing with various emotions he can't control, and he finally decides to open up about them.
But Jennifer is happy with her live-in boyfriend, Kevin. She turns John down.
At first blush, it appears to be a simple crime of passion, but that implies a blind rage. But Iikinger brought a knife with him for this romantic gesture. It doesn't add up with a spur-of-the-moment violent response.
He stabbed her in the stomach because he understood that the rib cage protects the upper chest and the main organs. And then he also said that in the Greaves killings, he knew to stab under the ribs and up.
Iikinger goes on to slash Jennifer's throat, a calculated decision to make sure she dies from her wounds.
Cut to 2005 and the story isn't much different. Heather must have been surprised at Iikinger's advances. She had told people close to her she considered Iikinger just a friend. She had even mentioned that Iikinger promised to bring her flowers for her birthday.
Iikinger brings the same knife he used to kill Jennifer Still, all the way from New Jersey.
Back at the Still murder scene, we were operating under the working theory that it was a steak knife with a yellow handle that was in a block on the counter and had been washed in the sink. We're operating under the working impression that that was the murder weapon, but it turns out that wasn't the case.
It's hard to believe he would bring the same murder weapon if he believed his romantic overtures had any chance of success.
He was ready for any response, no matter how good or bad it may be.
Of course, Avery and the Greaves sister, they weren't supposed to be there.
These details are important to ascertain before the trial. There's a big difference in the eyes of the law between a crime of passion and a murder that is premeditated.
Premeditation also has a specific definition in the law in that it doesn't require days or hours or weeks or any set amount of time. It can happen in a fraction of a second. It's that amount of time necessary for the killer to decide to kill and fully form the intent to do so.
Iikinger also made some calculated decisions after the Greaves murders. He actually tampered with Lisa's body to make it appear as a random sexual attack.
They're the type of women that would turn most young men's heads, and young men don't always think clearly when that happens. The slight change in the way her clothing was, he later said, was to try to make it look to me like it would be a sex crime, which of course it was not.
Was Iikinger actually hopelessly in love? Or is this the work of a psychopath with a bruised ego?
That angered him, that he thought that he was this great catch for them. The fact that they spurned him was a blow to his ego. So he developed this ability to be prepared for a murder with a knife, quietly remove the person who's causing him loss of confidence.
It seems that the police have a bulletproof case against Iikinger.
But as District Attorney Bruce Castor knows from experience, there is still a ways to go to make sure Iikinger sees the justice he deserves.
In 2005, capital punishment is still legal in Pennsylvania.
Throughout the year, 128 inmates were put on death row, which was the lowest number of admissions since the early 70s.
Given the lack of remorse, the severity and brutality of Iikinger's crimes, Castor won't be satisfied until this killer receives the death penalty.
But with a trail of murders spanning 6 years, aged DNA evidence, and Iikinger's lawyers attempting to expunge his confessions from the court record, his ultimate fate is far from certain. John Iikinger is arrested for the violent and bloody murder of Heather Greaves, her sister Lisa, and Heather's 3-year-old daughter Avery.
He also confesses to murdering Jennifer Still 6 years prior, in the same brutal fashion.
On September 15, 2005, Iikinger attends a 5-minute hearing in Mays Landing, New Jersey.
The judge orders that he be held in custody without bail.
Because the evidence and admission is so damning, there's little chance he's going to walk out of prison, even if it's prior to his court hearing.
For his trial, Iikinger agrees to waive his right of extradition and is returned to Pennsylvania to face his charges.
He is originally charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder and a weapon offense. Then, additional charges are laid for the murder of Jennifer Still.
Iikinger pleads guilty to both crimes. But his legal counsel asks that his confession at the Acme supermarket be stricken from the record.
Iikinger's defense counsel argued he was just following his employer's policy not to resist anyone brandishing a firearm, and as such, was just cooperating when he provided a false confession. It was a pretty transparent attempt to withhold from the jury some of his more horrible admissions and potentially dodge a death sentence.
The judge ultimately allows the confession into the trial.
The confessions were very detailed. In fact, one of the issues I had to deal with was a complaint from the defense that we had 3 different confessions and so much detail that by using them all, it was overkill.
District Attorney Bruce Castor leads the trial for the prosecution. He is determined to convince the jury that a death sentence is appropriate.
Clearly, it was a death penalty case. And what makes a case eligible for the death penalty is there's a first-degree killing, and the killing is accompanied by 1 or more aggravating factors.
Aggravating factors are key. Jurors don't take the death penalty lightly, and there are many facts to prove along the way, including something called malice.
Malice is a specific definition. It is a summary of what you might use if you were to describe the word evil. A hardness of heart, cruelty, a mind totally void of social constructs and willingness to operate within the law.
These aggravating factors affect whether prosecution can actively seek out the death penalty.
If you don't have any of the aggravating factors on the list, no matter how heinous the crime, you can't seek the death penalty. Nastiness of crime is not one of them. It has to be specific, like killing a police officer, killing a child, killing more than one person at a time. They're very discrete individual things.
Castor believes that Greaves' case has enough of these aggravating elements to seek a death penalty ruling.
I mean, it was a horrific crime scene, and these young women were just butchered. A knife is a up-close and personal way to commit a murder, and then killing a 3-year-old because the 3-year-old can identify it is really, really bad.
Ultimately, John Iikinger confesses to all 4 murders before the judge. but argues that he should only be given 4 life sentences, claiming that he suffered from schizoid personality disorder and was under extreme duress during the time of the crimes.
It's a nice try, but the prosecution argues that Iikinger had no history of mental illness, and by bringing the same weapon to the second murder, there were aggravating factors of premeditation.
All this to say, Iikinger was happy to admit to his crimes, but didn't want to pay the ultimate price for them.
After 6 hours of deliberation, the jury recommends the death penalty 3 times over. Iikinger also receives an additional life sentence for the murder of Jennifer Still.
The Supreme Court opinion was unanimously, which is also very rare in a death penalty case to get a unanimous death penalty affirmance in the Supreme Court, because lots of people are anti-death penalty and some of them are judges. To get them all to be on the same page was pretty unbelievable.
This is a historical moment. Iikinger is the first person in Montgomery County to be convicted of 4 murders.
The judge ruled in my favor, and ultimately the Supreme Court affirmed it.
Since his incarceration, Iikinger has made several attempts to appeal his sentence, but they have all been denied. In 2008, Eikinger's death warrant is signed by Governor Ed Rendell. However, the sentence to this day has not been carried out.
After 4 brutal murders and 6 long years in between, John Iikinger is behind bars for the rest of his life.
Thanks to solid investigative work from DA Bruce Castor and Detective Albert Donnell, the Greaves family and the relatives of Jennifer Still will be able to celebrate the lives of the people they loved, knowing that a killer is finally behind bars.